Good afternoon and welcome to this week's Yorkie Today. I'm Brett Blacker.
And I'm Georgie Reid. On today's show,
as part of our Local History Awareness Month, our reporters went down to the Castle Museum to learn about the history of the cells and their most notorious prisoner.
My favourite part about Dick Turpin is how the myth has grown up around him. It's how, in the 18th century, you have these lists of famous highwaymen that Dick Turpin is appended to.
York has been named as one of the most polluted cities in the country by the World Health Organisation. Our reporter Ava Farrelly has been finding out what the council are going to do about it.
So, do you take any measures in your everyday life to reduce air pollution?
I always turn my car off when I'm in a traffic jam. I haven't got a trendy car that switches itself off, but I know how to hurt the key.
And we'll be meeting 6-year-old Danny, whose mum is campaigning for an awareness of a rare genetic disorder which will limit her son's life. And we'll be finding out what you can do to help. When thinking of cities with high pollution rates, we often imagine large industrial areas such as London, Manchester and Liverpool as being the worst affected. However, would you be surprised? It might be a little closer to home. Our reporter Ava Farrelly has more.
The World Health Organisation has named York as one of the most polluted cities in the UK. Research has revealed that York is currently more badly affected by pollution than London, at a shocking 12 micrograms per cubic metre. York's air pollution levels are on par with cities such as Leeds, Sheffield and Liverpool. The air pollution is caused by factories, transport and burning wood and is associated with a number of serious health issues such as heart disease, lung cancer and respiratory problems. We spoke to councillors Andy de Gorn and Denise Craghill from York's Green Party on the issue.
They particularly affect vulnerable people, so elderly, children, people with asthma. In particular, people with asthma have very serious worry that it could be fatal for them. So the impact it has depends on the individual, but it's also there's two different measures of air quality. There's a short term and the longer term, and in the longer term exposure, that has a sort of chronic effect on like elderly people and so on that can shorten their life. Anti-idling, the policy that we have in Air Quality Action Plan 3, which we've submitted 3 or 4 years ago now to the government, said that we would actually have fines in place, which wouldn't be, most of the time wouldn't be needed, but as a backup to really get the message home that drivers shouldn't be waiting with their engines running.
Elements of York City Council say that by next year all city-run buses will be electric in order to reduce the high levels of air pollution. I spoke to residents of the city to find out their thoughts on this shockingly high statistic.
I think that it must be because York is very small and the traffic comes to a standstill quite frequently. So obviously they're not on the move and taking their pollution with them. There may be a case for making the centre of York a traffic-free zone and encouraging more bicycles. The problem with the bicycles is that we don't have really good dedicated cycle lanes like they do in Copenhagen or somewhere like that. So, cyclists are quite vulnerable as they weave their way in between the traffic. I know there are some streets in York that are particularly bad. Outside the Theatre Royal, for a start, apparently is bad.
And what's your opinion on that?
My opinion is that I don't want to have to go around wearing masks.
Because York no longer relies heavily on large-scale industry, the main cause of air pollution is diesel emission vehicles such as private cars and buses. Hopefully, the policies being introduced and lobbied for will be able to combat this in the future. Ava Farrelly, Yorkie Today.
That is actually quite shocking, isn't it?
It definitely is. Ava also looked at what other cities have been doing to try and combat the issue.
Thanks, Georgie. As you'll have seen, London actually has lower levels of air pollution than York does, a figure that's really not that surprising considering the amount of traffic congestion behind me right now in a city that was built in medieval times. Local authority is doing everything it can at the moment to try and combat the issue, but unfortunately plans just aren't moving along as quickly as we'd hoped. Other cities such as Leeds are looking to introduce congestion charges and fines for idling, which will hopefully reduce the levels of air pollution in big cities like that if they follow suit. We'll just have to see what happens in our city. Back to you in the studio.
Coming up, we'll be talking to Graham Relton, Archive Manager at the Yorkshire Film Archive, to find out what you can do to celebrate Local History Awareness Month.
And we also find out why Transport Minister Chris Grayling was in York today. A York mother is campaigning to raise awareness for a rare disease that affects her son. She discovered that Danny suffered from MPS 2 when he was just 3 years old. Our reporter Molly Cattrall went along to visit Sally and her son Danny to find out more.
6-year-old Danny suffers from MPS type 2, a strand that only affects boys. MPS is a multi-organ storage disease that means sufferers are unable to produce an enzyme which helps to remove waste made by cells in his body. The disease is a progressive physical disability and in many cases causes limited life expectancy.
I thought really early on that something wasn't quite right, but it was all tiny little things that you couldn't quite put your finger on. He didn't sit up as early as his brother, but you know, it was still within reasonable length of time, and he didn't crawl until he was nearly 1, and he didn't walk until he was over 18 months. But that's all acceptable, but it just didn't feel right. Nothing was quite as easy as it felt like it should be. Given his coarse features, I think it's worth looking into genetic causes behind this. And of course, hearing that was a bit difficult. Being told that your baby's got coarse features isn't particularly great, but you know, it's just the way that he used to describe his wide nose and the big forehead, and basically he still looked like a baby despite the fact that by that time he was nearly 3.
Despite this having a negative effect upon the family, Danny's unawareness of the disease encourages the family to appreciate the time they spend with him. Despite there not being a current cure, there is hope for Danny as he is currently undergoing experimental treatment in Manchester.
The first few months were just awful, particularly actually the waiting to hear. It was almost a relief when we got the diagnosis because the waiting was the worst. It's like just not knowing. It's like being on a roller coaster ride, you know, when you go down like that and your stomach comes up into your mouth. Only it felt like that permanently.
Next week is MPS Awareness Day, which happens annually on the 15th of May.
I'd love it if anyone who watches this could wear blue on May the 15th for MPS Awareness Day, and the bigger the better. Hair, lipstick, face makeup, whatever.
Thank you, Molly. We at the Yorkie decided that the very least we could do was add a touch of blue to our outfits with these ribbons, and we encourage you at home to do the same. You can find more information on our website.
Now for the news in brief. The Transport Secretary, Chris Grayling, is in York today to launch a digital railway strategy which should make for more frequent, faster, safer and more punctual trains. The Transpennine route, which travels from York to Leeds, Manchester and Liverpool, will be the country's first digitally controlled railway It is one of the station's biggest modernisations since Victorian times.
And the second stage of the luxury Hungate accommodation developments have been given the go-ahead to start work. Lend-Lease Homes are currently building 101 new apartments, townhouses, and there are more blocks to build. They also hope to create a commercial unit and a community centre.
And preparations have begun today on Parliament Street for York's International Market, where over 40 traders are selling unique crafts and serving fresh food with flavours from all over the world. The 4-day market includes dishes from France, Germany, Greece and Ecuador. There will also be a wide selection of cultural products to purchase, from cheeses and pastries to tribal jewellery. The festival will run from 9 AM till 7 PM, apart from on Sunday when it closes at 5 PM. Deaf Awareness Week commences on Monday, and York City Screen Cinema is screening 5 short films with subtitles for people hard of hearing to be more involved in culture. One of the 5 screenings includes the Best Short Film of the Year, winner of York's own Aesthetica Festival in 2017, The Silent Child.
All this week we've been celebrating the museums of York for Local History Awareness Month. Today we'll be finding out more about York's notorious highwaymen.
I'm stood outside the York Castle Museum today, which was founded in 1938 by John L. Kirk and resides within York Castle's prison buildings. Held within the museum are exhibitions on York in the 60s, Kirkgate, which is Britain's first recreated indoor street and named after the founder of the museum, as well as information about York Castle Prison over the centuries.
Right, so Dick Turpin was a famous highwayman. And the reason he's famous is not necessarily because of what he did at the time or what he was hanged for, but because of a novel written by a guy called William Harrison Ainsworth in the 19th century. This novel, called Rookwood, was a bit of a romantic romp, and it featured Dick Turpin as a dashing romantic highwayman who made a daring ride from London to York on Black Bess, his faithful steed. And he gets to just outside York and Black Bess tragically dies, and it's really sad and kind of emotional. And that never happened. So that's why Dick Turpin's famous. My favourite part about Dick Turpin is how the myth has grown up around him. It's how, in the 18th century, you have these lists of famous highwaymen that Dick Turpin is appended to. They exist in the 17th century as well. People were fascinated by highwaymen and their dashing reputation. But that dashing reputation was all put together by the people who wrote these publications and these kind of broadsheets and booklets about the stories of famous criminals. So it became this public myth. Now, Dick Turpin himself, he'd been a butcher down south. He had got in with a group called the Gregory Gang, and they did housebreaking. And he was a very thuggish person. Dick Turpin was imprisoned here under the name John Palmer and tried for horse theft. Now, he sent a letter to his family to plead for them to come and help him. They wouldn't pay the postage, so the letter ended up in the hand of James Smith. James Smith had taught Dick Turpin to write and read when he was younger, and he was like, I recognise this handwriting. And he came up to York to give evidence and to say, this isn't John Palmer, this is the notorious Dick Turpin. So he was sentenced to death for horse theft, sentenced to be hanged at the Knavesmire, which is just outside of York up at the racecourse.
As part of our celebration of Local History Month, we are joined today by Graham Relton, Archive Manager of the Yorkshire Film Archive. Hi Graham, could you tell us any more about the festival and what it can offer people?
Well, Local History Month is a great opportunity to look at your local archive, and we're based here right at York St John University. We're a charity. We have a simple remit to find, to preserve and to show moving image made in or about the region. Around about 50,000 films, around about 50 million feet of film that we care for. It's all about getting it out to audiences, and what better month to look for it than this month of Local History Month and looking at some of that great York material that we have.
Lovely. So we've actually got some of the films from your archive just on the screen there, and we've just kind of put them alongside shots of modern day York. And as the films will tell you, not much has changed.
No, I mean York as a backdrop and as a set has stayed pretty much the same, and it's always been a tourist place as well. And this film called Queen of English Cities, the one on the left there, was made to promote York as a city, as a destination for tourism. And it hasn't changed. What has changed is the fashions, what we wore and what we drove around in, and some of the things that we did. If you know wider films of York, lots has changed. But in terms of the landscape and the cityscape, it's pretty much stayed the same.
And if you're interested or have your own footage, what can you do?
Yeah, local history month is a great idea to look in your lofts, your garages and your sheds, see if there's any films hidden away. If you're a contemporary filmmaker now, we'd love to collect that sort of stuff. And if you just want to look back, a little bit of a nostalgia trip, you know, what your parents, grandparents might have seen in this city, then visit our website, yorkshirefilmarchive.com, and there's hundreds and hundreds of films that you can see.
Well, thank you for joining us, Graham.
And it looks like we might have lost the sunshine today, but we now go to Annabelle Forster with the weather to see if it might be making a return over the weekend.
It's been a cloudy start to the day with the odd shower here and there, but it's going to brighten up as we move into the afternoon. Showers will die out and the sun will be making an appearance into the late afternoon and evening. Maximum temperature will be 15 degrees. And tonight it's expected to be clear with the minimum temperature being 1 degree. Looking on to Friday, it will be dry with long, bright or sunny intervals, and cloud will thicken during the afternoon as the breeze develops from the south. There's expected to be an odd spot of rain towards midnight with a maximum temperature being 7 degrees. And the outlook for Saturday to Monday is cloudy with a likely chance of rain on Saturday. There's expected to be sunshine with isolated showers on Sunday and more cloud throughout the week and with the odd shower. And the temperatures are returning to normal for May.
That's all from us at Yorkie Today. We hope you have a great weekend, and remember to wear your blue on the 15th of May for MPS Awareness Day.
There's more on our website, www.theyorkie.co.uk, and our social media pages about MPS and what you can do to help, even if it is just wearing a little blue ribbon. Goodbye for now.